They've been here before, back in October. Indiana walked into Autzen Stadium and walked out with a statement. A 30-20 win that changed the national conversation. Now it's January. The lights are brighter. The stakes are higher. And the margin for error is gone. 1 Indiana. Number 5 Oregon. Not a fluke. Not a surprise. A rematch with everything on the line. This is the College Football Playoff Semifinal. This is the Peach Bowl. This is the rematch that matters. Hoosier Tailgate live starts now.
Raiola. And picked off the sideline. Indiana. Asbury walking them down. Woo! IU. America. They got a football team now.
Welcome in, everyone. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. I appreciate you joining me here on another Hoosier Tailgate live on the Hoosier.com. 48 hours out before the Peach Bowl kicks off there in Atlanta between number 1 Indiana and number 5 Oregon in a rematch of 2 Big Ten teams fighting for the trip to the final game of the season, which would be the national championship game. Tonight, we're going to break it down. One of the most fascinating playoff matchups as we've seen in years. On the other side of the spectrum, tomorrow night, we've got the other side of the bracket kicking off. You got Miami and Ole Miss facing off in the Fiesta Bowl, another big-time matchup out there to see who will line up against the winner of Indiana and Oregon. This ball club and Oregon don't need any introductions. They've already played, but make no mistake, this game is not about October. It's about January. Indiana enters this game, the number 1 team in the country, built on consistency and discipline and also physical play, while Oregon enters with momentum, confidence, and a season's worth of adjustments since that first meeting, and a big victory against Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl, 23-0. Same team, same jerseys, different stakes, and that's going to be the biggest thing for this ball game coming up here. Is everyone wants to know how Indiana is going to face in something like this in 48 hours. When you look at this ball club, why this rematch is a little bit different. Well, first and foremost, that game was back in October, and the first game, Indiana 30-20, a game where Indiana needed some plays to come up with a big win there in Eugene. After a pick six that was thrown by Fernando Mendoza, they were able to capitalize on the very next series to get a go-ahead score by Surratt, and then the defense capped it off with an interception. But this game will be much different than the first one, and you can't put too much stock into that game because of how far back it was. And number 2, the difference these two teams have maybe found differences in themselves offensively and defensively between that game and to the game on Friday night. So it's going to be one dandy of a ball game, and there's no question that Vegas has this game as a 4-point spread for Indiana. You can expect it to be pretty darn close in this type of game that, again, you're going to hear me say razor thin margins. razor thin margins. So again, if you got any questions for this evening, by all means, we want you to participate. Jump in on the chat by dropping in a question or just to say hello. We'd love for you to be a part of our live shows. And if you got any questions, I hope that I can be able to answer them, as well as direct you to my Twitter page, Hoosier Tailgate. There on that page is in the bio section is a link tree where it gives you all the different links to the Fanatic store if you're looking for Indiana gear and some other affiliates that the Tailgate is affiliated with. But you can find that on my Twitter bio at Hoosier Tailgate. But if you got any questions for this evening, by all means, feel free to throw them into chat. I know that the Hoosiers are taking on Maryland right now, halftime. They're in Maryland. And because of the game being Friday night and such, I had to do it tonight. So I hate to run into the basketball game, but Indiana up at, I think, by 5 at half. So we'll get you all caught up on that if need be, but we appreciate you joining us here this evening. We've got some big news as it pertains to some things. We'll talk about the portal. We'll talk about some of the guys that are out for Oregon, losing some of their good players in this game as well. But again, this matchup is going to be a little bit different than the game in October. Indiana's identity really hasn't changed much. We still got a team that prides itself and travels with the mentality of fast, physical, and relentless. That's the way they play on both sides of the football. And of course, as you hear Sig talk about all the time, never, ever satisfied with where they're at. So this is a team that you can bet is going to play a game on Friday night with that mentality, fast, physical, and relentless, for 60 minutes, and we'll see where the chips fall after that is said and done. But again, this game, we'll talk about some of the dynamics in this game. What are some things to be on a lookout for? We'll get in some film as well, and just really kind of break it down so we understand what you could plan on seeing on Friday night from Oregon, as well as Indiana in that respect. But Indiana, again, they're Alabama and the Rose Bowl, pure dominance from start to finish. An offense that was led by 215 yards of rushing by the dynamic duo of Kalon Black and Roman Hemby. Again, those two are going to have to be big again against Oregon, as anytime you're going to talk about winning championships, you got to have the ability to run the football. And Indiana's got two dynamic backs that gives them that opportunity to rush the ball with effectiveness. And they did the first time against this Oregon defense out in Eugene. But again, that fast, physical, relentless mentality, always a part of the makeup. What is it, this Oregon team, and what kind of has transpired since Indiana played them back in October? One of the things that you've heard Dan Lanning say, even some of their team has said, analyzing their loss to Indiana, they felt their preparation that week was very lackadaisical, almost too much of a confidence that here comes Indiana, and they weren't buying the hype, and therefore they felt they didn't prepare like they should for this game against Indiana. And they found out that Indiana's pretty darn good, and lost themselves a ball game at home in a place that they're pretty darn good at home. It's tough to win in Eugene, and Indiana was able to go out there and do that in that October day. But you listen to some of their pressers, and they talk specifically about that game. It was a little bit, I don't want to use the word excuse driven, but if you recognize the fact that you're not practicing the way you're supposed to be practicing, and you're being lackadaisical in your approach, well, that's the leadership of that ball club, including the coaching staff, for allowing that to occur. So, again, you're trying to find answers to what happened other than the fact you just lost a game. Irregardless of what happened, the bottom line is you lost the game at home in an environment that you've had quite a bit of success. But what that ultimately did for this Oregon ball club, because that put their backs against the wall, knowing that they still had some tough games in front of them. And one of those games being at Iowa. And they were fortunate enough to escape Iowa 18-15, very similar game to what Indiana had with Iowa. Kind of that ugly type of ball game, but they were able to win that game. And I think that game really catapulted them into the mindset that they could run the table and a potential if Ohio State would have stumbled prior to the Big Ten championship game, they may have been able to get into the Big Ten championship game. There were some scenarios there where they could have gotten in, but I think that game against Iowa on the road really catapulted them into the mindset of running the table and going 13-1. And then again, they played the first round games against James Madison. They handled that game, but they gave up 35 points to James Madison in a very lackluster second half, I guess you could say. I mean, the game was never in doubt, but I don't think Lanning was all too happy with the way that kind of evolved as their defense got scored upon pretty consistently in the second half against JMU. There's always three numbers that decide a game, and you look at it, especially playoff games. You look at turnover margin, you look at red zone efficiency, and you look at explosive plays. All three of those, Indiana has come out on top every single game that they've played. They win the turnover margin, they win the red zone efficiency, and they end up having more explosive plays than the team they're playing against. So those are things that when you watch a game, especially, Indiana's games, you want to take note of who's winning the turnover margin, who's doing what in the red zone efficiency wise. And then of course, how many explosive plays does a team have? And those are things that are going to tell you who's going to win a game. And it's pretty regular that you can look at those three statistics and have a pretty good idea what is going to happen when you look at a game or watch a game, that those three areas are the ones that really tell the tale of a game that's happening that you're watching or finding out later about. You can always go to those statistics and say, this is why a team won. Last thing in it, portal updates. Indiana has been, man, oh man, what a week in that respect. They've got a ton of kids through the portal committed. They're still working on a few others. They just got a commitment from a kicker from Hawaii, who is an Australian kicker, 30 years old, by the way, and still has, I think, 3 years of eligibility. But they just signed him. They got Hoover, the quarterback from TCU. They got Nick Marsh, the wide receiver from Michigan State. Turbo Richard was another big pickup out of the portal, and I can just go on and on. But one of the big pickups was Brock Schott, a kid that was at Miami, a tight end up here out of Fort Wayne Leo High School. He had Indiana was pretty heavily involved with his recruitment a year ago. He ended up choosing to go to Miami, but Indiana gets him on the rebound. And that is huge because this kid is going to be dynamite as a tight end in this offense. He's going to be a guy that you can feature in the run game and in the pass game because he's got the body to block. He's got the legs and the agility to run routes. And it's a very exciting pickup for Coach Signetti and staff there because you're losing, two big tight ends that were pretty dominant for you. So picking up Brock is going to be a huge boost for them from an offensive standpoint. And it's good to see a kid from Northeast Indiana end up with the Hoosiers when you think about it all in that respects. But when you look at it all, it's kind of one of those things is, hey, it's a game that Indiana's done quite well with the portal, and they're continuing to do that. And I look for them to still have some more needs to be met here in the weeks to come, especially along the offensive line and the defensive line. And we'll have to just wait and see. But the big news out of Bloomington today was Mark Cuban, the billionaire, gave a sizable donation to the NIL collective there at Indiana. And while there has not been any disclosure on the amount, and I don't think there will be because I would have probably imagined that was part of the agreement. I'm getting the indication that it was a pretty sizable gift, and that's great because that's how you get these top tier kids. I mean, Hoover was an estimated $2 million quarterback. And that's not to mention what else you're going to have in terms of your needs that you're going to, require some money, in that respect. So it was good to see that from Mark Cuban, and he will actually be in attendance there at the Peach Bowl on Friday night as well in that respect. And, when you look at some of this, with these guys, like I said, these two teams, both in the top five, Indiana number 1, Oregon number 5, they've really both been pretty dominant in some of their wins. Indiana's average margin of victory, I think, has been like 32 points or something like that, kind of ridiculous in some respects, but, they have won and won convincingly. And, they've done it by beating Ohio State. They've beat Oregon. They've beaten Iowa. They've beaten Penn State. They've beaten, some of the quote unquote blue bloods of what you would determine be blue bloods of college football. And no other bigger one than what they did in the Rose Bowl to Alabama. So again, a very, very big win for this Indiana team. But that goes out the window because it's a new game and a chance to play one more time. And it's going to take a lot to get themselves into a situation where they can put themselves in a position to win this game on Friday there in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. But when you look at how we got here and all that stuff, it's, this season for Indiana has been about their identity. They know who they are, how they want to play, and they don't flinch. They do not flinch. Signetti's done a tremendous job in getting these kids to realize that they're never satisfied and they're always wanting more and being able to play with a chip on their shoulder. I mean, I think that's one thing that's been pretty evident in these games is that they still have to, they still play with that chip on their shoulder. They've been able to win close games. They've handled the pressure. They played their best football when the lights were the brightest. And I just think this team is really focused on what it takes to be a top-tiered college football team. And this coaching staff has done a tremendous job week in, week out, preparing these kids to go out and play their best game. Oregon's path, we've talked about, it's been different, but impressive in their own right. They've evolved. They've gotten better execution. I think they've gotten better balance. They've had some run pass game has been pretty balanced in what they do. We'll see some of the statistics in there. This is a dangerous rematch. There's no question about it. Both these teams are capable of winning a game like this. And they're all going to believe that they're the better version of themselves. All righty. Okay. Frosty mug. I like it. Oregon fan. Well, we appreciate that. And we appreciate you stopping by the Hoosier Tailgate. And it's good to see this. We can now say this because we are in the postseason. It's great to see 2 Big Ten teams that are vying for a spot in the national championship game. And I think it's easily saying that the Big Ten has become the premier league in college football. And I do think that's something to be said. But appreciate you coming by, Frosty Mug. And by all means, if you got any questions, comments, we want to hear it, but appreciate you. Appreciate you stopping by. Good to see you, Justin. And yes, much respect to you guys too. And you're, as Coach Signetti has said, that Dan Lanning is one of the premier younger coaches in college football. Having coached it myself for 28 years, I can concur Sig's thoughts on that, because the way Dan Lanning handles himself, it's truly, he's a class act. And you can also see it with his family too, as they've gone through some trials and tribulations with his wife and things of that nature. But much respect to you guys. And like I said, we're in the playoffs now. It's good to see two Big Ten teams battling for a shot to go win the national championship in that respect. So appreciate you being here with that. But again, this rematch is a very, very tight game between these two teams, because when you look at them, we're going to look at the statistics here in a second. You're going to see how close these teams are in some respects to what they both have on offense and defense and things of that nature. You can understand why they're pretty darn good teams themselves. But when you look at this offense comparison to these two schools, when you look at it, Indiana averaging a 41.6 a game to 38 for Oregon, almost identical in yards per play. Indiana converting 56% of their third downs. I mean, that is unheard of. I mean, Oregon at 46 would be considered phenomenal. But to see Indiana at 56%, that's just crazy in that respect. But again, why is that? Well, we've talked about this before. Indiana's efficiency on first and second down has been tremendous all year. They are lining up third and short with no more than third and medium. They've stayed ahead of the schedule. And that's what it takes, especially in this type of game. But you can see there, Oregon is no slouch either. Yes, I saw that Davis is out for you guys at running back, so that was a tough blow. But we don't have Kellen Wyatt or Stephen Daly, or two edge rushers that are pretty darn good themselves. So it's unfortunate to see those kids get these injuries at this time of year. It just kind of sucks for them, and my heart breaks for him because of these things. But again, injuries being a part of it. Red zone TD percentage, Indiana's getting 72% into the end zone. Oregon 64. Then when you look at the rushing and passing statistics, Indiana 220 yards on the ground, 247 through the air, where Oregon 206 and 251.4. So again, pretty equal in their makeup, offensively speaking. You can see that. Then when you flip it over to defense, not too much is different here. Indiana giving up only 10 points a game, Oregon 15, coupled with that big shutout against Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. 4.5 yards per play, 4.3. And again, Indiana's third down percentage, 28%, to Oregon's 35%. Indiana in the red zone, they do not give up much touchdowns. They're only 26%. Oregon's at 68%. And then the differential there in sacks, 42 to 29. It can tell you a lot with that in that respect. So, I mean, it's again, two equally matched ball clubs when you talk O&D. NIL can be great. Serious revisions need made. Your star players are no longer safe. Well, that's what Mark Cuban's for. That's why I dropped the big money into the NIL collective today. So, again, that's the nice thing about having some billionaires in the midst of your organization. They can drop the big mucks in there and still not bat an eye about it. But back to these two teams, O&D wise, you can see They're very similar. They're very similar in the sense as they both like to rush the football. They both want to the RPO game. Dante Moore's got probably one of the quickest deliveries of any quarterback. I mean, he can get the ball in and out of his hands. He can be a dangerous runner as well. Now, he doesn't like to run it, but he's a guy that you got to account for because he can motor now, and he can hurt you if you think you're just going to play off of him and not do something to that extent. So, again, a lot of things to look at here. You know, I've said this before, you know, stats don't win a game, but they tell you how games are won. And that is the one thing when you look at these stats and you want to know, why is Indiana 14-0 or why is Oregon 13-1? You can see within their statistical analysis why they are where they're at as football teams. It's pretty simple to see that aspect of stuff. And again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The most important number when you look at statistics is turnover margins. We'll talk about that here in a little bit more when you look at some of this stuff. But it's, again, Indiana, again, has been pretty good all year in the turnover game. And I'm trying to see if I've got that stat. I don't see it yet, but Indiana, I think, is a plus 18 on the year, and Oregon's like a plus 9. That's huge. Oregon has big play, explosive potential. They've got some guys we'll talk about here in a second about stretching the ball down the field in chunk plays and such. But again, we'll take a look at these are two twin siblings, one being prettier than the other. Productive experience was high star rated superior athletes. Yeah, it's a pretty good analogy. I mean, that's what I mean about these two ball clubs being pretty identical in their makeup. And you can tell, you know, the importance of being able to run the ball and utilize the passing game, but getting the ball in and out of the hands of the quarterback being a key component, and efficiency and effectiveness on first and second down, staying ahead of schedule and stuff. So we're going to step away, take a quick break here real quick. We're going to come back after this. We'll talk about some of these big players. We'll talk about some of that. We'll talk about, you know, get into some video stuff as well as the objectives. And of course, the final thoughts before we sign off for the evening. But we'll be back with all that right here on the Hoosier Tailgate Live on thehoosier.com. Hoosier fans, listen up. This is the coach, Shannon Griffith. And if you're gearing up for the game day or gearing up for the holidays, the Hoosier Tailgate storefront on Fanatics has everything you need to rep the cream and crimson in style. From official Indiana Hoosiers game day apparel, hoodies, hats, and sideline gear, to tailgating essentials and accessories, this is your one-stop shop for all things Hoosiers. And with the holidays right around the corner, it's the perfect place to grab cold weather gear, stocking stuffers, and IU gifts for the whole family. And here's the kicker. When you shop through the Hoosier Tailgate storefront, you unlock exclusive discounts across Fanatics. More Hoosier swag, better prices, and gear you won't find anywhere else. Ready to load up your cart? The link is easy to find. Just head to my Hoosier Tailgate Twitter page and hit the link in my bio. You can also find it in every YouTube description and all of our Hoosier Tailgate podcast episodes on your favorite platforms. So don't wait. Rep the Hoosiers proudly and save big. Visit the Hoosier Tailgate storefront on Fanatics today, because the best fans in the Big Ten deserve the best gear in the Big Ten.
If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. 2. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season 1 for the history books. Make it legendary. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877.
Welcome back to Hoosier Tailgate Live here on the Hoosier.com. Let's see here, Jamie. Am I heading to Atlanta? No, I'm not heading to Atlanta. I would love to be heading to Atlanta. My son lives there. Ike lives there in Atlanta, and being that he's a former Hoosier player and such, but my wife had her knee scoped right before Christmas Eve, and I want to make sure that she's getting around okay. Be hard to kind of head out the back door to Atlanta for a couple of days of fun, leave her back here. So I will be watching it from the 50-yard line of my living room. And in some cases, I find that even better to watch a game because I get too wrapped up in things on site. I get distracted easy. So, but be able to watch it. But no, I won't be heading down. So, but those that are heading down, by all means, it looks like pretty decent weather heading down and such. So be safe going down, whether you're driving or flying, and enjoy that atmosphere there in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It should be a great venue to watch a game there on Friday night. Wanted to get into some of these top players that we wanted to talk about tonight. What'd you say? I'm leaving my wife behind to take care of our water heater. Well, good. Yeah, that's, you better bring something back that sparkles a little bit for that aspect of things. But I wanted to get into some of the top players in this ball game that we're going to see Friday night, whether you're watching it on TV or there in Atlanta. There's no question Dante Moore is one of the prototypical quarterbacks in the country in the Big Ten. I know some have even ranked him as a number one selection in the upcoming NFL draft, but you can see he's been pretty accurate all year. 73%, 3,200 yards, 28 touchdowns, 9 interceptions on the year. He's one of those guys that has been the fulcrum of this offense. Great for comparing IU's passing defense, pressure, impact too. This is going to be a key component of this game on Dante. Can Indiana continue to get pressure without having to necessarily always bring more than they have to block? In that game up in Eugene, they were able to get home by just rushing 4. Now, they did their normal zone pressures and stuff, but they didn't have to bring that 6-man pressure. They could get home with 4, and they did quite well. The kid that we were talking about here just a second ago that is not in, he's just been ruled out, is Jordan Davis. As you can see here, 15 touchdowns, 667 yards. He's 6'3", 235, 36 pounds. He was a primary a threat for them. And so he's going to not be in Friday night's ball game, as he is going to be out in this game. And I wanted to see if I had, let's see, I do have some others for them. They're gonna let's see. That was one. Mekhi Hughes was another one, the running back. He's a kid that played in that game in October. Dewan Riggs, another run back. Jaden Lamar is out. I think he just went into the portal. And old lineman of Wilson. But this one's the big one of not being able to play in this game. So that's a big hurt for Oregon. But this other kid, Noah Winnington's another kid that is a pretty good back. 829 yards, 6 touchdowns. He gives balance. He's a kid that's got pretty decent speed. He's a little bit smaller than Black is in that respect for Indiana, but this kid runs hard, and he will be a challenge. So while Davis has been their big guy Whittington's been the other kid that's been in a pretty good kid in that respects. The other kid you got to keep an eye on is this kid, Benson. 696 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's their clear deep threat. He's the chain mover, useful when discussing IU secondary and coverage responsibilities. He's the one that got by on the big pass play that Oregon threw against Indiana on a big, deep kind of a fake play action pass type of scenario. And he got behind him, and it was 88 out the gate. And you just can't have mistakes in your secondary coverage wise when you got guys on the outside that can go get it. And he's one of them that can. The other kid that they like to go is their 2 tight ends. This kid is a big time body, 531 yards. They like to get him down the middle of the field or matched up against LBs. He only had 2 receptions against Indiana in the first meeting. And the other kid that they have in there is Jamar Johnson. He's another kid that's a vertical threat for him. Those 2 tight ends, as you can see, they almost got 1,000 yards between them in receiving. Both of these guys had a total of 3 receptions against Indiana in the first game. I know that was one of the talking points for Oregon's offense, that they didn't feel like they get to their tight ends as much as they would have liked to, because that has been their premier passing game, is those guys matching up and mismatches in the middle of the field. So look for Oregon to really try to bang some balls to both of these kids. That is going to be the key component here. But those 2 tight ends are big threats for Indiana, and they're going to have to be very aware of them in the passing game, whether they're spread out or attached. And like I said, I think Oregon felt they did not try to exploit Indiana with the tight ends in that game, and they need to try to do it, more of it. Now, when you switch over to defense and look at all this, you got 2 edge rushers that are pretty darn good. Mateo is a big time rusher. He's a guy that can get, on the edge and beat you off the snap. 6 sacks, 9 TFLs, 6 quarterback pressures, and 2 forced fumbles. So he is a big time edge rusher, as is the other kid, which is number 44, which is not Mateo. I'm sorry about that. Where he's got as many TFLs. He's also a big time player off the edge, but he did not have a great game. Tatum Tiote is, I think that's how you say his name. I probably butchered that. But this kid and Mateo are both bona fide skilled rushers on the outside that can give you trouble and fits if you're not paying attention to them. And Indiana in that first game, they blocked them pretty well. And then up front, Washington is a kid that's a big body kid, 6'3", 330. Very strong against the run. I wouldn't call him a bona fide pass rusher, but they like to twist him and moving him around. But he's one of those bigger bodies up front that can be hard to move. And you're going to have to find ways to get the push on these guys like they did that first game by utilizing not just zone plays, but some gap schemes and things like that, because they're very good at it. The secondary, first you got to talk about the linebacker. This kid is, I love this kid. He's kind of like Aiden Fisher in some respects. He is a guy that plays the run game pretty good. He does things good on the perimeter. And he's a guy that makes plays. And that's what you notice about him. That's going to be a key component. Now, he didn't have a lot of tackles against Indiana's first time, but don't let that fool you. This kid's a bona fide player, and he's one of the guys that talked about the lackadaisicalness of their preparation when Indiana played him when they played Indiana back in October. So you can already, summarize what his mindset has been this week in preparation. We know this young man, he's from Purdue, Dylan Thieneman. Again, he is a great safety. He's got great ball skills, and he's a guy that can make plays and go, get takeaways. And Indiana, a couple times they ran right at him. He was the guy between the goal line, and Roman Hemby ran him over a couple times. But this kid is a bona fide player. He has been when he was at Purdue. He continues to be at Oregon. He's kind of the leader of the secondary. The other kid on the outside is Flowers. He's a really good cover corner. He's a guy that can play against your best as well, but he's a guy on the outside you got to be aware of, as is Brandon Finnery. This is the Frosh, 6'3", 200 plus pounds. He's the guy that took the pick six back against Indiana back in October. And this kid's a freshman, but he's a big time player. And he's also a guy that has a nose for the football in that respect. So again, some bona fide players in this game coming up. Yeah, Indiana will have some opportunities to pick some kids up through the normal commitments during the Army-Navy All-Star game, which, again, those are the games that you just don't know who's going to say yes or no to until you watch the game. But it is said to believe that Indiana is competing for some, top-line talent in that game in that respect. So, but Indiana, again, this Oregon football team, as you can see, they have a lot of talented players, and they've got some players that can flat out go get it and play tough football. And again, that's why it makes it harder when you compete against a team that has this type of talent. Beating them twice, and that's what people talk about all the time. Now, a lot of that's coaches speak and things like that, because once the game gets between the white lines, it's its own life, and what happened in October has nothing to do with what's going to happen Friday night. But again, the talent that Oregon has, you can, see that they've got very talented players. In Indiana, again, even though, they don't have the 4 stars and 5 stars dotting their lineup, they've been able to compete against these teams from the standpoint of how they play. They play with that fast, physical, relentless, never satisfied. And, they are very good in terms of their technique and how they attack you to give you the distinct advantage. So again, that's how Indiana's done it all this time when you think about it. But again, when you start looking at some objectives here, and let's see, got it somewhere. There we go. When you look at this ball game, and if I'm going to sit here and before we get to the film session, with this Hoosier offense, let's see. They got to stay out of the second and longs. That means efficiency on first down. What is efficiency? 4+ yard average or more. That keeps them ahead of the sticks. Try to dictate the pace of the game. I like to see Indiana maybe change the tempo up a little bit to keep Oregon off guard. Keep them on their heels, so to speak. Find ways to neutralize those edge rushers, however that is, whether it's screens, whether it's, pulling and trapping them, doing things that gets their head on a swivel and slows their, idea of just getting up the field and blowing past you. You got to eliminate the negative plays by staying on schedule. And then, of course, red zone efficiency. We talked about that before, about 95%. Defensively, very simple. Get them off schedule. Don't give them explosive plays. Make them earn every point. And that's the thing. Do not give them cheap scores. They did. They gave them one cheap score in that October game on that big play action pass and the pick six. But they cannot give up chunk plays to Oregon. Control the edges by their own defense. Win the money down. Of course, Indiana's done that pretty much all year. Get pressure on Moore, but don't let him escape. Make sure that you're accounting for him and do not come out of coverage. If he breaks contain, stay in coverage because this kid is looking to throw it more than he's looking to run it. Create turnovers and then win the red zone by holding them to field goals, which Indiana's done pretty darn good all year. Special teams, you got to win the field position. Like to see the special teams score or set up score in the kicking game. Be 100% on field goals and PATs, especially field goals of 40 yards or in. And be alert for fakes. They will run them, whether it's in the PAT, whether it's a field goal, whether it's a punt. You got to be aware that Oregon will do trick plays at any point in time. So you have to be alert for that stuff against this ball club because they will run it and they will do it. And you got to be aware of that stuff because otherwise you're going to be caught off guard in that respect and give up something cheap when you do it that way. So those are kind of the things that I see as being some of the key components of this game objectively for Indiana and what they need to do on both sides of the football, including the special teams. And they've got to play, again, a near perfect ball game to beat a team of the caliber of Oregon. And I know we talked about that against Alabama, going in against Alabama. But this one, again, I think Oregon has a little bit more talent than what Alabama did. Again, we're talking a team that's probably more closely related to the Ohio States of the world than anything. And Indiana, again, fast, physical, relentless, and never satisfied mentality is what it's going to take to win this ball game. Let's head over to the video room here and throw on some Oregon defense. This is their Orange Bowl game against Texas Tech. Thing about Oregon and their structure and everything, you know, you're not going to see a lot of junk. It's pretty clear. I mean, it's one high, so you got to figure that it's probably going to be cover one or cover three in that respect. Here they're kind of rotating back down, kind of rolling back to a cover two, kind of a robber situation here with Thiemann being in there. And again, this is a nice run, but you got to stay on those blocks. That's 44 at the top there making that play. So you can see how quick he is, and then he gets off blocks pretty good, and he makes plays. Here's another 1st and 10 play. Again, whoops, sorry. It's the same play, dummy. Okay, now here's the bunch set. Indiana will do this. You can see they like to walk a guy out here, but you can see inside here, they've only got 5 guys. So they're trying to bait you to run it because they're going to use him to be the 6th guy into the box. You know, so you think that of being a nice look to run the football, but I'm telling you, 31 is in there to be that extra body in the box because they want to try to fool you. This is a quick screen. Anything you can get your ball in and out of your hands quickly, the better. Indiana did a great job of that against the first time. They did a lot of things where they got the ball in and out of Fernando's hands and got it to the guys in space and did a great job with that. again, 3rd and 3 here. You know, here you got it again, kind of a bunch set up here at the top. You know, again, there's their big time rusher here, big time rusher there. Again, you see it. You got one guy in the box, one linebacker, but this guy right here is in position to be that extra support in this respect. So again, they're showing it too high, and they're going to play coverage here, kind of that Tampa 2 mentality. And this is what you can't have happen. Look at both the tackles; they just get collapsed by both of these guys, and you can't hold the football. He should throw it to the back out of the backfield, but he holds on to it too long, and it turns into a big time sack and loses 17 yards on it. That's what you can't have in a game like that. It's 3rd down and 3, and you can't not convert on these. But you can tell these guys on the edge, those guys are ready to rock and roll, and they will use their strength and length to get after you. Here we go to a 2nd 8. Again, kind of spreading them out, and you look at this and you're seeing these backers walk out. There's really nobody in here other than the free safety to be that extra body down. Pretty good look to run it. Yep, pick. Again, you got to be careful. There's 4. That's the kid we talked about. He is a guy that has great ball skills and was able to get the pick there. That was a poor decision. You can't do that. Again, here they're coming with some pressure on the edge. Kind of a soft box, playing cover, kind of cover 2 in behind it. They over pursue here and they get a big run. Just an easy play, and they broke contain, and he gets down the field. Third and 10 again. Here they're in their odd look, but they're bringing kind of their zone pressure here. So you're going to bring these guys off the edge. He's going to drop in this flat. They're going to be kind of a cover 3 type of look. And they threw it underneath, which was the right throw for that look on 3rd and 10. Probably going to get a chance to get a first down here. This is the game back in October. Show some Indiana stuff here quickly. This is 1st and 10. They're bringing a boundary hot corner strike down here at the bottom, twisting the inside. And this is what Fernando did really well through that back shoulder throw, because they wanted to try to play man against Indiana. Indiana is one thing. Everybody wants to pressure Mendoza, thinking that that's the way to rile him up. Well, like I said, Alabama did it 52% of the time, and he was 14 of 16. In this game, he had a good day throwing it as well. This is a 3rd and 6. They're playing the box. They're rolled up, playing tough up on the outside, kind of looking like a man-free concept. Bringing the mic. This is a great pickup at first by Roman Hemby, but not good there inside by the right tackle here. And this is Washington that's making this, our right tackle, look bad. Yeah, that's ugly. That was actually our guard, I mean. That's what can happen. Get driven back into that by the defense. Okay, let's switch over here to some of their offense. Oops. Okay. Here's that play that I was talking about. The play action that they got the big hit on. They kind of run a little bit of a switch route, 4 verts. And safety got turned around. And that's Benson. He's a big time player. You can't let him out behind you. Now, this is Davis. This is a kid they'll miss on Saturday. This is just inside zone. And he's a kid that they won't have at their ready on Saturday, but you can see the type of running back he is. This is Indiana. This is a good job of getting your hands up, getting the big play at the right time. This is the one we got the pick to kind of seal it up. They're late in the game. Now, this is the game that was just happening at the Orange Bowl. Texas Tech was very, very bland with their defensive plan, but you can see this is a great job by this nose tackle. He does a great job of push-pull and gets a big-time TFL. This game at halftime was, I think, a 3-0 game, and then Oregon opened it up in the second half. But it was a tight ball game. But watch this. Boom. That's really good by that nose tackle. Get him in about 3rd and 8 here. Great anticipation. This is a hell of a throw. Can't let that happen when he's looking down the guy either. Really a great grab as well. But he gets the ball in and out of his hands. See, that's not 9. That's that tight end. And that's what they like to do with those guys. They want to exploit the middle of the field when they can with them. Whoops. They're big bodies. Makes a great throw. Big play on 3rd and 8. Gets a first down. Again, Texas Tech, pretty vanilla here. Just kind of playing a very soft zone, playing cover 3 to the top, 2 to the boundary. And they're going to throw flat curl. Whoop. I mean, this is like taking candy for the baby. Okay, a little bit more looking like they're going to play man that they switch it up at the last second, bringing a boundary blitz. And then the top guy off the edge gets to him. Boom. Big play right there. That was the 3rd down play that got him there. But you can kind of see that when Dante Moore has time to throw the football, he can get the ball in and out of his hands pretty quickly. Like right here, you can see this is a RPO. Probably should have given it. He's going to throw a bubble out here, and it almost gets picked off. So he can make poor decisions. with the football. And if you get pressure on him, he can make those poor decisions, like I said. But as you can see with these guys, I mean, Dante Moore is a legit big time quarterback. If he gets into rhythm, he's very dangerous because he can start feeling it, especially if they get the tight ends loose and they start picking apart Indiana with the tight ends. That's going to be troublesome because that's when you go to sleep and somebody like Benson runs by you. So Indiana's defense is going to have to be really aware of the situational things on Friday night. Pressure defense, getting after them at the right time, wrapping them up and things of that nature will be the real key component with it all. But when you look at it from this perspective, the numbers that decide playoffs games, I've said it before, turnover margin, Indiana's a plus 18, Oregon's plus 9. Red zone scores, Indiana at 91%, Oregon at 85%, and points off turnovers. Indiana 113 points off of turnovers, Oregon 75. So you can see right there what it takes to win games. And that right there is what Indiana's done all year long in those critical categories of turnover margin, red zone efficiency, and then another statistic I like is getting points off of turnovers because it goes hand in hand with turnover margins. October showed that Indiana was legit. That game at Oregon, coming off of that 3-game gauntlet, Illinois, Iowa, Oregon, Indiana comes out of that 3-0, and that was what set everything up into a national perspective. Basically, Friday night's going to really show us who Indiana really is in this situation. This is a team that is, in some respects, kind of destined for greatness in that regard, but they're going to have to play a great game. I don't think this is a revenge type of game. It's about execution. It's about being tough. It's about trust in what you, in your identity of who you are and what you are. That's playoff football. And I do think Indiana has the ability to get another W and get themselves to Miami for the national championship game if they can do the things that they've been capable of doing all year long. Well, I thank you for joining us here this evening on the Hoosier Tailgate Live here on thehoosier.com. I'll be back on Friday for a pregame primer, so we'll be looking for that 2 hours prior to the start of the game. If you're on your way down to Atlanta, by all means, take your time, safe travels, enjoy the game, enjoy that playoff atmosphere there at Mercedes-Benz Field, and we'll see how Indiana fares against number 5 Oregon in the Peach Bowl. Well, until next time, everyone, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. This has been the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time.